What if you could walk into any room and instantly command the atmosphere? What if you didn't need to shout, threaten, or even speak much, yet people would still shrink in your presence? Not out of fear alone, but out of a silent, paralyzing awareness that they were not in control. This is not magic. It's not manipulation in the traditional sense. It's strategy. A strategy rooted in the ruthless genius of Niccolò Machiavelli. Welcome to Philosophical Pulse. If you value power, perception, and the hidden psychology of dominance, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because what we're about to explore is not meant for everyone. It's meant for those who are tired of being overlooked, outplayed, talked over, and are finally ready to reverse the power dynamic without ever appearing to try. Let's begin. Powerlessness is an illusion, but so is control. The first principle Machiavelli teaches is this: power is perception, control is illusion, but influence, true influence, is real. You see, Machiavelli never believed in brute strength as the ultimate weapon. He believed in presence, a kind of psychological pressure that bends others inwardly, without you having to move outwardly. Most people seek to overpower others by being louder, smarter, or more aggressive. But Machiavelli flips the script. To make someone feel powerless, you must show them that you are entirely indifferent to their validation. You don't need their approval. You don't react to their games. You don't compete on their terms. You watch, you calculate, and you let them reveal their insecurities by doing exactly what they think they must do to impress, control, or defeat you. This is the first secret of Machiavellian presence. Withdraw your emotional currency, and others will bankrupt themselves trying to earn it. The silence that shakes them. Powerful people are never in a hurry to explain themselves. Think of the last time someone criticized you. Did you rush to defend your name? Machiavelli would say that was your first mistake. When you explain yourself too quickly, you reveal the desire to be understood. And desire is weakness. The Machiavellian move? Silence. Let them speak. Let them attack. Let them fill the space with their accusations, their bravado, their petty logic. You say nothing or very little, because your silence says more. It says you're not on their level. It says their opinion is not important enough to shake you. And most importantly, it forces them to feel the awkwardness of their own overreach. They feel exposed while you remain untouchable. The more you speak, the more likely you'll expose your weakness. The less you say, the more they imagine you have nothing to lose. Become the mirror, not the flame. Machiavelli advises rulers to be feared more than loved. But what if you're not a ruler? Then you must become something even more powerful. The mirror. What does that mean? When someone expects you to react emotionally, react analytically. When someone tries to provoke you, ask questions instead. Deflect with calm. Reflect their emotional energy back at them. Make them hear themselves in your silence. It's unnerving. People hate it. Why? Because they want a fight, not an echo. They want validation through opposition. When you give them nothing, they begin to lose control not just of the situation, but of themselves. This is how you take power, by becoming the mirror that forces others to confront their own reflection. You don't need to attack someone to break them. You simply need to deny them the battle they crave. Control the tempo, break the pattern. In a world addicted to speed, power lies in the one who controls tempo. When someone speaks fast, you speak slowly. When they demand answers, you pause. When they lean in, you lean back. Controlling tempo sends a message. I operate on my time. You adapt to me. You are no longer reacting. You are dictating, not with force, but with rhythm. And rhythm breaks people. Because once you interrupt their mental pattern, they begin questioning themselves. Am I being too aggressive? Why isn't he responding? Did I go too far? And just like that, You've made them feel powerless, not because of what you did, but because of what you withheld. We're only just beginning, and if you've been paying attention, you'll start to realize this formula is not loud, it's not aggressive, it's surgical. That's the Machiavellian art. Before we continue, make sure you've subscribed to Philosophical Pulse, because the deeper we go, the more dangerous the insight becomes. And if you miss what comes next, you'll miss the most critical part of the formula. Drop a comment below. Have you ever made someone feel powerless without saying a word? Or have you been on the receiving end of that silence? Coming up next, we dive into the subtle tactics Machiavelli used to erase someone's confidence. Not with confrontation, but with precision. Watch till the end, because the final truth we reveal might change how you hold power for the rest of your life. The subtle art of eroding confidence without ever raising your voice. You don't break people by overpowering them. You break them by unbalancing their sense of control. Confidence doesn't die in one swift blow. It's eroded slowly, through moments of doubt, awkward silences, and subtle misdirection. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. And if you learn to wield this quiet power, you won't just influence people, you'll haunt them long after you've left the room. Welcome back to Philosophical Pulse. If you're just joining, subscribe now, because the psychological tactics we're uncovering today are not for the average mind. They're for those who are ready to stop playing fair and start playing smart. Let's continue. Make certainty feel like a trap. Confidence thrives in certainty. So if you want someone to feel powerless, you must make them doubt their certainty, not with contradiction, but with unsettling agreement. Here's what Machiavelli would do when someone boasts. Agree with them, but do it too quickly, too easily, with a tone that says, "Of course you believe that." This creates a strange dissonance in their mind. They expected resistance. Instead, they got your approval, which now feels hollow, even sarcastic. They begin questioning their own confidence. Validation offered too easily is worse than none at all. It suggests mockery or manipulation. This is how you turn their strength into unease. You've said nothing cruel. You've raised no argument, and yet they feel smaller. The power of interrupting patterns. Humans crave predictability. We feel safe when others behave as expected. That's why power lies in breaking patterns. When someone expects you to laugh, stay silent. When they expect anger, give calm. When they think they've won your attention, withdraw. This doesn't make you mysterious. It makes you unreadable. And unreadable people are terrifying, because they cannot be mapped, controlled, or predicted. You've become an anomaly in their mental system. Predictability gives comfort. Unpredictability gives power. Suddenly, they don't know how to act around you. Their confidence becomes shaky. They overthink. They second-guess. And you haven't laid a single blow. You've just bent the rhythm. Weaponize ambiguity. Machiavelli advised leaders to master the art of deception. But here's the twist. He didn't mean blatant lies. He meant strategic ambiguity. Say just enough to be interpreted in multiple ways. Leave your expressions neutral. Leave your compliments vague. Make your support feel conditional, as though you're always slightly out of reach. This forces others to work for clarity. And the more they work for your approval, the more power you hold. Because the moment you become the one people need to figure out, you've already won. Mystery doesn't repel. It entices. But too much clarity? It dissolves power. Never let people fully understand your motives. Keep them suspended in a fog of questions. Because the one asking the questions is always less powerful than the one answering none. Control the frame, never the fight. Most people try to win arguments. Machiavellians don't. They control the frame instead. What is the frame? It's the underlying assumption that dictates how the situation is interpreted. For example, if someone accuses you of dishonesty, don't defend yourself. Instead, question the validity of the question itself. Say, "Interesting, that's your focus." Or, "I'd be more concerned with results than perception." You've now reframed the confrontation. They're no longer debating the facts. They're justifying why their question mattered at all. And suddenly, they're defending themselves. Win the frame and the fight becomes irrelevant. Most people argue inside the rules. Machiavelli teaches you to question the rules. And in doing so, render your opponent powerless inside their own logic. Let them speak while you observe. There is immense power in saying less, but even more in making others say too much. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't just in withholding. It was in provoking others to expose themselves. The tactic? Ask open-ended questions. Then go silent. Let the other person talk. Let them reveal too much. Let them try to impress you. They will, because silence makes people nervous, pressures them to fill the void, and in their rush to be heard, they will reveal far more than they should. Their insecurities, their ambitions, their weaknesses. Meanwhile, you sit quietly, collecting data. Words are weapons, but the one who listens builds the arsenal. We're nearly a quarter of the way through, and already the psychological power you now hold is greater than what most people will learn in a lifetime. But we're not stopping here. Subscribe now to Philosophical Pulse, if you haven't already, because what comes next will show you how to drain someone's inner fire without ever raising your voice, losing your cool, or showing your hand. And remember, the final message at the end of this video will only make sense if you followed every part. Skip ahead, and you'll miss the formula Machiavelli never wrote down, but always lived by. So stay sharp, stay silent, and watch closely, because next is where we start turning presence into psychological domination. Presence that paralyzes. How to make people doubt themselves in your shadow. There are people who walk into a room, and everything changes. Not because they speak loudly, not because they take up space, but because they bring with them an energy that disrupts comfort, shatters illusions, and forces people to second-guess themselves. This is the silent weapon of psychological power. And Machiavelli didn't just understand it, he crafted it. Welcome back to Philosophical Pulse. If this is your first time watching, hit subscribe now, because what we're building here is a blueprint to control perception, dominate without confrontation, and leave your enemies confused and cautious. Drop a comment if you've ever felt someone's energy pull a room into silence, or if you've been that person. Either way, what comes next will sharpen your presence like a blade. Let's get into it. The aura of untouchability. Machiavelli knew, real power doesn't need to advertise itself. It exists in the impression you leave behind, not the effort you display. To create this aura of untouchability, you must do one thing: detach yourself from outcomes. People who appear desperate to win, to be liked, to be noticed, radiate need. Need is weakness. But when you move with a calm indifference, as though nothing anyone says or does can touch your internal balance, you instantly project power. Why? Because you show that your validation comes from within, and others instinctively want to chase what you're not offering. The less you need from others, the more they want something from you. You become the silent center of gravity. They orbit you, and they don't even know why. Control the space without owning it. People think power comes from dominating the room. Machiavelli knew better. Power comes from influencing the room without appearing to control it. You don't need to speak first. You don't need to sit in the middle. You don't need to command attention. Instead, let the room adjust to your stillness. When people are animated, you remain calm. When the room is loud, you stay quiet. When others try to impress, you simply observe. And slowly, people begin to defer to you, not because you fought for authority, but because you didn't. Restraint is intimidating. It suggests you know something they don't. And in the battle of unspoken power, those who hold their energy the longest always win. The gaze that disarms. Machiavelli was obsessed with observation, but not passive watching, intentional seeing. You can break someone's confidence with a look, if that look tells them one thing: I see through you. Maintain eye contact longer than expected, but not aggressively. Let it linger, just past the comfort zone. Not with anger, not with amusement, but with calm precision. This disarms people. They begin wondering what you're thinking, what you've noticed, what you're not saying. And that uncertainty, it destroys confidence, because they feel exposed, while you remain unreadable. The one who sees more holds more power. The one who reveals nothing becomes feared. You don't need to insult them. You just need to observe them without flinching. That's enough. Mastering the pause effect. In high-pressure conversations, most people rush. They fill silence with words. They fear awkward pauses. But if you want to make someone feel powerless, you must own the pause. Here's how. When asked a question, don't answer immediately. Wait a second or two. When making a point, pause between your sentences. Let the weight of your words settle. When someone challenges you, say nothing at first. Let them feel the tension rise. This pause is not emptiness. It's pressure. It forces the other person to sit in their own discomfort, to feel the lack of control, to wonder what you're thinking. And every second of that silence is a second where you are in control. The one who speaks first loses leverage. The one who pauses commands the tempo. Disengage emotionally, engage strategically. Powerless people react. Powerful people respond strategically. Machiavelli taught, never reveal the full extent of your emotions. To do so is to give your opponent the map to your mind. If someone insults you, smile faintly. If someone praises you, remain unmoved. If someone confronts you, stay composed. Not because you're afraid, but because you've trained yourself to act with intention, not impulse. This emotional discipline unnerves people. They can't provoke you. They can't read you. They can't manipulate you. And that makes them feel powerless. Emotions are data, but to the Machiavellian, they are never public. We're now nearly halfway into this psychological blueprint. And if you're still here, it means you're not just watching, you're transforming. But the formula is not complete yet. Hit that subscribe button to stay locked into Philosophical Pulse. Like the video if it's resonating. And tell me in the comments, have you ever broken someone's rhythm with silence? Have you ever let presence do the work instead of your voice? Coming up next, we'll explore how Machiavelli used anticipation and uncertainty to drain people of their strength before they ever realized it was happening. Remember, if you skip ahead, you'll miss the turning point, and the final lesson at the end, it only reveals itself to those who follow the entire path. Stay with me. The deepest part of the formula is just beginning to unfold. Part 4, Anticipation and Uncertainty, Machiavelli's hidden weapons of psychological control. Confidence breaks not in confrontation, but in anticipation, in the silence before the storm, in the long pause before your response, in the look that hints, but never confirms. This is the part of Machiavelli's formula most people never see. Because it isn't about what you do. It's about what they fear you might do. Welcome back to Philosophical Pulse. If you've made it this far, you're already different. You're not looking for shortcuts. You're looking for psychological leverage. Subscribe now if you haven't already, because the final stretch of this formula will show you how to paralyze someone with doubt before you've even made a move. Let's go deeper. Turn clarity into a question. Most people crave clarity. They want to know where you stand. They want to label you, categorize you, predict you. Machiavelli? He turned that craving into a trap. Here's how. Whenever someone thinks they understand you, change pace, shift tone, contradict their expectations subtly. If you're warm, become cold. If you're expressive, go quiet. If they expect you to resist, agree. But with hesitation, what does this do? Turns confidence into confusion, and confusion leads to hesitation. Hesitation is the death of control, and the birth of submission. When someone no longer knows what version of you they're dealing with, they begin deferring to you just to avoid misstepping. That is power. Use expectation as a psychological lever. You don't need to move first to win. You just need them to believe that you could move at any moment. Create the illusion that you're always watching, always one step ahead, always capable of responding with something they haven't prepared for. But, and here's the key, don't do it. Just let the possibility hang in the air. This is Machiavelli's hidden genius. Never deliver on every threat. Let the idea of retaliation be scarier than the action itself. Anticipated consequences are often more powerful than real ones. Keep them guessing. Let them overthink. Let them walk on eggshells, trying not to trigger the move you never said you'd make. You don't need to act. You need to haunt. Master the psychological echo. Words are not forgotten. They linger, especially when they're planted with care. Here's the tactic. Drop subtle phrases into conversation that echo in their mind later. Examples. You'd be surprised what I've noticed. People don't always see the real consequences until it's too late. That's an interesting choice. Curious what made you go that route. You're not attacking. You're planting seeds. But the more they think about your words, the more they start to imagine intentions behind them. And their imagination is your most powerful weapon. A single, well-placed sentence can torment someone more than an entire argument. This is where you become unforgettable. Not for what you did, but for what they thought you might have meant. Stay unavailable but always present. Machiavelli warned against being too accessible. Familiarity breeds contempt. Power comes from scarcity. So don't always be there. Don't always reply. Don't always show up right away. Be present enough to matter, but distant enough to be missed. Let your time feel valuable, even sacred. Let people wonder where you are, what you're thinking, what you'll do next. Because once they begin wondering, they begin needing you. Powerful people aren't seen often. They're remembered often. Make yourself just out of reach. Not aloof, but deliberately selective with your presence. Creates longing. Creates mystique. Creates imbalance. Use delay as a weapon. This is Machiavelli's most underrated strategy. Control through delay. When someone asks something of you, pause. When someone expects a response, make them wait. When someone is waiting for your approval, hold back. Why? Because people hate waiting. The longer they wait, the more anxious they become. The more anxious they are, the more emotional their thinking becomes. And emotional people are vulnerable. Delays create pressure. Pressure creates cracks. Cracks reveal control. Let others act quickly. Let them rush. Let them show their hand. You delay. Because power doesn't rush. Power doesn't chase. Power makes others wonder when, or if, it will move. We're now 3/4 of the way through this psychological map. And if you've been following this closely, you're already thinking differently. You're beginning to realize that true power is not about being feared or loved. It's about being unpredictable, unreadable, and unshakable. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Join the Philosophical Pulse community, where we dissect power, control, and human behavior with brutal honesty. Tell me in the comments, have you ever used silence or anticipation to control an interaction? Or has someone ever used it on you? Coming up next, we enter the final stretch, where Machiavelli's formula reaches its darkest edge. Because the last tactic isn't about control, it's about erasure. And if you're not ready for that, you've misunderstood everything so far. The final part will unlock the truth Machiavelli could never write in a book, but always practiced in life. Be there for it. Erasing influence. The final step in Machiavelli's formula to make anyone feel powerless around you. There is a kind of power that doesn't confront, doesn't threaten, doesn't even speak. It simply makes the other person disappear. Not physically, but psychologically. Their voice fades, their confidence dies, their presence becomes irrelevant, because yours dominates the space without ever declaring it. This is the final, most devastating step in Machiavelli's formula. Welcome back to Philosophical Pulse. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people never will. Real power doesn't roar. It erases. Make sure you've subscribed, because what you're about to learn now is the most subtle and the most lethal form of psychological domination. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faded someone from your world without a word? Or felt yourself slowly erased by someone who never lifted a finger? Let's bring the formula to its dramatic end. Step 1. Make them feel unnecessary. The first blow isn't direct. It's silent. You don't reject them. You simply stop depending on them. You stop asking. You stop updating. You stop engaging in ways that suggest they're needed. This isn't cruelty. It's surgical. Because once someone realizes they no longer play a role in your world, their sense of relevance begins to crack. And that crack is the beginning of collapse. You don't remove them. You let them realize they were never essential. Let their identity crumble under the weight of your indifference. Step 2. Starve their influence. Every relationship has an invisible economy. Attention is the currency. If you want someone to feel powerless, you must starve their influence over your emotions, your thoughts, your actions. When they try to provoke you, remain calm. When they try to impress you, remain still. When they try to guilt, shame, or manipulate, smile faintly and move on. Because the moment they realize they can no longer move you emotionally, they lose their grip. Influence dies the moment it stops feeding on reaction. Once they can no longer affect you, they begin to doubt their own power. They question themselves. They shrink. You haven't silenced them. You've made their voice irrelevant. Step 3. Reposition yourself as the center. This is the pivot Machiavelli understood better than most. To erase someone's influence, you must redirect the center of gravity. In any social dynamic, there is always a center. The one whose opinion matters most, whose rhythm sets the tone, whose presence defines the space. Reclaim that role without declaring it. Lead with subtlety. Control with rhythm. Speak with intention, and rarely. The less you compete, the more space opens around you. And soon, you're not part of their world anymore. They're part of yours. The most powerful person in the room is the one who doesn't seek approval, but defines the standards. By simply existing on your terms, you shift the gravitational field. Others begin rotating around you, even those you've already decided to leave behind. Step 4. Let them feel the void. The final stage in this erasure is not about what you do, but what you stop doing. You remove your energy, your feedback, your attention, your laughter, your eyes. They still exist, but no longer within your frame. And that emptiness? It screams louder than any confrontation. It makes them question their worth. Replay every word. Analyze every look. Because people don't fear being hated. They fear being ignored. Hate keeps a connection alive. Indifference buries it. When you stop acknowledging them, they don't know how to exist in your story. And that's the final blow. The Machiavellian paradox. You never attacked, yet they fell. This is the art that Machiavelli never wrote plainly, but always understood. The ultimate power move is not to crush your enemies. It is to render them unnecessary. Because to fight someone gives them importance. To destroy them acknowledges their threat. But to erase them, to remove their ability to affect your thoughts, emotions, time, or energy. That's when they truly disappear. You have replaced them with silence, with focus, with control, and they will feel it, even if you never speak to them again. We are now at the final edge of this formula. You've made it through deception, silence, presence, anticipation, and psychological erasure. You now understand what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. True power is invisible. It works beneath the surface. It makes others move while you remain still. If this resonated with you, hit the subscribe button now. This is Philosophical Pulse, where we don't just decode ancient philosophy, we weaponize it for modern strategy. Leave a comment. Tell me what part of this formula hit hardest for you. And have you ever used any of these tactics without realizing it? Before you go, remember this: the world will try to distract you, to pull your attention, to steal your energy. But the more you let others dictate your thoughts, the more power you surrender. Machiavelli's real lesson is this: control begins within. And once you master your internal world, the external world bends to you. Most people will never reach this level of self-possession. But you're not most people. Stay sharp, stay silent, stay sovereign. Until next time, remember, they only have power if you give it to them.